So I hope you joined the DevOps Docker classes, right? So let's continue with the Kubernetes. Okay. So what is Kubernetes? Why Kubernetes? So let's discuss that. So in yesterday's session, we discussed about Ansible playbooks and Ansible roles. What is Ansible, right? In previous sessions. So right. So what are the other items we have to discuss? So we have to discuss about the Kubernetes, Jenkins, and Terraform, right? So coming to today's session, we will start the Kubernetes. So as I said, Kubernetes is very uh, lengthy topics are there. Okay. So what we are doing? So we are having 2 to 3 sessions. So 2 to 3 hours of sessions. So those sessions, okay, are helpful. We can try for 2 plus years of Kubernetes jobs. Okay. So because if you want to go for 5 plus or 4 plus of jobs with Kubernetes, you have to learn 3 months of only Kubernetes course. So here I'm going to teach you the Kubernetes, right? Uh, which helps for you to crack 2 years plus jobs. Okay. So let's start the Kubernetes. So let me go to the web. Let me connect to aws.amazon.com. Let me sign in. Right, I'm in AWS account, right? So so the AWS itself is providing one of the service, so which is acts like a Kubernetes, right? So you can use Kubernetes. So we can call it as Kubernetes. It's a orchestration tool. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool. Okay. So right. So what is Kubernetes? If someone is asking, so you can say Kubernetes is a orchestration. It's automated the task of container management. So for example, if you have one server, Docker server, and another Docker server, if you want to manage this with containers within the Docker servers, okay, these are containers within the Docker server. Okay, I would say this is Docker agent 1. Okay, I would say Kubernetes agent 1. Here you will install Docker. This is Kubernetes agent 2. Here you will install Docker. Okay, and there you will run some containers. These are, I would say, containers. Okay, so if you want to manage the deployments within this container, for example, these containers having some Nginx application running with second version. If you want to update the image uh, with third version of image, so how we will do, so you will go for the Kubernetes. So Kubernetes master, how we are using Ansible, there is a Kubernetes master where you will install the Kubernetes, you will set up the Kubernetes, you will set all these into one cluster, you will set all these into one cluster, and you will make use of the deployments using master. If any latest image is uploaded to Docker Hub, so you will pull the Docker Hub image and you will update your content. So I would say this is some Docker Hub, and this Kubernetes master will take that I can say Kubernetes, or I can say K8S, because the letters between K and S is 8 letters. It is in between. Okay, so we'll call it as Kubernetes or we can call it as K8s. Okay, so why everyone is using Kubernetes? Because the main advantage, it automates the deployments. The main advantages of Kubernetes is, so it automates the deployment, automates the deployment, and auto scaling as well, auto scaling. So in the Kubernetes, in the Docker, we have a terminology called container, but in Kubernetes, there is a terminology called pod. I would say this is pod, POD. So pod is nothing but multiple containers, collection of containers, one or more container, right? So the terminology called pod. So if you mention, I want my pod, right? I want my pod, right, to maintain 3 containers or 2 containers. What this auto scaling will do, if one pod is down, this auto scaling will automatically create another container within that pod. Okay, we'll call it as auto scaling feature. It automates the deployment, and it is right. That means taking the latest Docker image, and this master will deploy that latest image to the pod level. So we'll call it as, right. So automates the deployment, auto scaling, speed and accuracy, right. So highly available application, high availability, right. And the final one, it is open source. That means anyone can download, anyone can install. And Kubernetes having a good community where you can ask for the doubts, and you can go for some seminars, you can see some webinars, right. So these are the advantages of Kubernetes, right. So we can use that. So just note it down, the advantages on the diagram. Okay, let's take the diagram. Right, just note it down. We'll see coming, we'll set up this master and agents. Okay, so just note down. Okay, I hope you have written. So what I did, so in the GitHub, I created one repository. So where I created how to set up the Kubernetes master and agent. So how to set up that. So you can see Kubernetes example voting app. There is one project also. So how to work with Kubernetes YAML files. Here I set one file called Kubernetes setup file. Here I created how to set up Kubernetes master and worker, or we can say agent, right? How to set up using some commands. There is some 100 plus lines, right? So you can use this to set up Kubernetes. So for that, let me go to AWS. Okay, let me share the URL of the page. So this is the page, right? So let me go back. Let me go to EC2 instances, launch instance, right? So so I will create a Kubernetes server, right? Kubernetes number of servers are two. I want to create two servers, and I want to go with Ubuntu. And within the Ubuntu, you can see so how to set up Kubernetes. Two servers you want, one master and one worker. Master with 4 GB, worker with 1 GB RAM. Anyway, I will go with both 4 GBs. Okay, so to make some effective installation. Okay, okay, and these are the commands you have to run. Okay, to set up Kubernetes. Okay, okay, 20.0 version I want to go with, two servers with Ubuntu, because the installation is related to Ubuntu, the commands related to Ubuntu only. Okay, and next you have to go with 4 GB RAM. Let me go with 4 GB, and key pair I want to go with existing, and then I would go with security group. Let me go edit the security group. So I want to open all the ports, okay, all traffic, okay, to make because Kubernetes will use background different port numbers. So that's the reason I'm creating Kubernetes. I'm opening Kubernetes, all the ports, and storage. I would like to go 25 GB because it is using background some uh, some of the storage related activities. So that's why I'm creating 25 GB C drive. I mean the primary disk. Right, I would say this is master. This is agent. Let's wait, it will come to a running state. Right, both are up and running. Let's connect with Kubernetes master. Click on connect. Right, copy the example command where I mentioned. So here is the 10 a.m. The file desktop work, right? So here I have classes. Here I have that 10 a.m. PEM file. Let me open the git bash here. Let me connect to master. So let me say yes. Let me make it as root user, right? And let me do that. Let me set the host name. So host name is master, right? Let me exit and reconnect. This is the master, right? Are you getting? So I hope you are getting the point. So I mentioned this is master because easy identification, and let's do that. So let's do the agent as well. Set up the agent also similar to like this, right? So this is master, right? And I will keep the agent also like that. Let me open another git bash window. So what I will do here, so I'm going to connect to agent as well. Okay, so how to connect to agent? So let me go to instances. So here I can see the agent. Let me connect to the agent. Okay, let me copy the example command. Let me connect to agent here, right? So this is the agent. So let me say yes. So what we are doing, we are understanding Kubernetes guide 3. So yeah. So let me connect as a root user. So okay, we took two Ubuntu servers, and what we are doing here. So let me set the host name for easy identification. This is agent, or we can say in Kubernetes, right? So we can say agent, or we can say right, right, Kubernetes agent or Kubernetes slave. So let me set the host name agent. Let me exit. Let me reconnect. This is agent itself. So this is master. This is agent, right? Master and agent both are ready. So what I said here, if you want to set up a cluster, the master and agent both we can call it as, if you integrated we will call it as a cluster. So to set up a cluster, so what you need to do, you need to run these commands. So I mentioned already common commands for master and worker, and the common commands for only master. And to set up that complete cluster, you need to run these commands, right? 1 to 7, we have to run this in both master and worker nodes. We have to install it. So in the organization it will be already installed, so but here you need to practice, right? For that you need to have on environment. So for that we are trying to so set up this one Kubernetes setup. Right. So to do this, okay, to do this, so let's, right. So let swap up some memory. So why we are swapping up some memory? Okay, so trying to swap up some memory for using the RAM size of something in future purpose. Okay, you're utilizing some space. Okay, so you're trying to utilize some space in future. That's why you are using this swap off to right, free up some space in the system. Okay, turn off swap space. Okay, you're trying to swap off. Okay, right? So after that, what you need to do? Okay, so you have to disable some swap of memory. Okay, swap memory, and you need to do this in both master and worker node. Let's copy this command. Copy, right? Copy both the commands. Let's try to swap off. So let's go to master and worker both and do, right, run both the commands like this. Once swap off is completed, you need to update your server and install some prerequisite softwares. You need to install some prerequisite softwares. To do that, what you need to do, right? You need to run this command. So mupdate -y to update all the systems, right? And upgrade some softwares as well. Okay. So let's install, let's update the softwares. Here also same. Right, which is done. Let's upgrade the softwares as well. Apt upgrade, right? All the softwares which get updated. Apt upgrade, and then please install the Docker within the server by using apt install docker.io. It's a Kubernetes one, right? It's a Ubuntu one, right? Right, one side it is done. Let's install Docker. Apt install docker.io. Yes, I want to install. Here also you have to install Docker. Let's install Docker here as well. Let's run the command. Yes, install the Docker. So once Docker is installed, you have to start the Docker. How you will start it? Systemctl start Docker and enable the Docker. You have to enable and you have to start it as well. The Docker. Okay. You can see the status also. Systemctl status up and running, right? And here also you need to start it. Systemctl start Docker and enable Docker, right? Which is done. So now once Docker is installed, let's install Kubernetes also. We have to done it both the servers. So to install Kubernetes, you need to, what you need to do, you need to add the repository of Kubernetes. So there is a repo you need to add. This helps to, right? You need to add a key. This is a key, right? You need to run this command in both the servers. You need to add the key. Got OK message, and you need to add a repository to store all the Kubernetes softwares. I'm adding this, right? So integrity list source could not be found. No problem. Okay, let's try to add that. Let's add it. Yeah, which are added now. So let's try to update the server and install required Kubernetes software, kubeadm, kubelet, right? And container D. So you can, these are the actual softwares we need to install. I will install container D later. Let me install it. Yeah, so all formed entries component. Okay. Vi slash etc apt slash sources dot list. Okay. Mm, looks like the Kubernetes entry is having some issue. So let me remove this. Okay, let me add hash before that. Let me copy. Let me run it again. Yeah. Let me do the same thing here also. Right. So now let's try to install Kubernetes related softwares. Right, which is installing. Same thing you need to repeat it for the other server as well. So you need to edit this etc apt sources dot apt slash sources dot list. So at the very end, the hash is not there. Let me add the hash. Okay, let me save the file and install the Kubernetes softwares. I haven't updated it. Let's update it. Then only the softwares get stored in the server. And let's install the softwares. Right. So this is master, this is agent. In both the servers I'm installing Kubernetes. Yeah, you no need to configure every time. Okay. So once you created servers for the first time, you need to configure it. The second time onwards, right? Must, right? Agent, if you are adding new agent, if you are adding new agent, that new agent level you need to configure it. Okay. But in the organization, okay, but in the organization you will get the already existing environment. Okay, you will take some AMIs where you install the Kubernetes and you are utilizing that same AMIs. No need to install it every time, because the AMI, we already discussed AMI. We are taking one server, from that server we are creating AMI, right? The default AMIs we will use that, but for your practical purpose you don't know how it is configured, so that's why I'm showing the process. So now the required softwares are installed, right? So you need to start the Kubernetes. Once Kubernetes is installed, you need to start the services. So how you'll start the service? I mentioned the commands here. So to start the Kubernetes service, you can use these commands. It helps to start the Kubernetes in master and worker node. Here also same. Right? So it is started. So Kubernetes is started. Okay. And the next step, what you need to do, you need to set up the cluster. For that, you can run the command to set up the Kubernetes cluster, use kubectl initialization, kubeadm init, and start the Kubernetes. So how to do that? You can use kube in the master level only. You have to set up kubeadm init is a command to initialize the Kubernetes master. It is pulling the required images. Let's wait. This is creating a cluster. Right, the master is ready. If you want to start your cluster, you need to run these commands. You are setting the configuration file. You're providing some ownership ownership commands to the cluster main configuration file. Just run those commands. After that, you can use kubectl get nodes. So what are the nodes you have? You can see that you have only master node. So if you want to integrate agent, you have to run this command kubeadm join. I want to join agent, right? This command, you need to take this command, and if you want to join any worker nodes or agents, you need to run the below command in that server as a root user. So let's take this command and run here. Okay, it is added. If you see kubectl get nodes, you can see the agent also. Earlier only master, now you can see the agent also. So right, this is how you will add agent, right, with the master, right? So with the master you will add. So this is how you will set up master and worker. So what are the commands I have run? Let me show that. So I created one master, one agent. I switched as a root user and swap of some memory for the future use of RAM size, right? And I updated some packages, and I upgraded the server apt upgrade -y, right? And what next you have to do? You have to add the Kubernetes uh, repository, and you need to install the required softwares. This is not required, right? And this is completely not required. Right, once Kubernetes installed, you need to start the Kubernetes by using the commands. You need to start the Kubernetes by using the commands. Okay, so just run these commands. After that, you need to start the Kubernetes. You have to set up the main configuration file, and you have to run right in the master itself. You have to run kubectl get nodes, right? So then you can see the list of nodes. So just note it down as a rough notes. Okay, so how you will set up the Kubernetes master and agent, right? So you have to set up all the things, right? These concepts you have to do, right? Just note down up to this. Let me read a few more lines. Right, so just note down these commands. Okay, yeah, we are using the token can to add. Okay, yeah, you can make it fork because it's a public repo only. You have the option to fork it. Okay, if you want to fork, you have a, yeah. So I forked it from another repository, you can see. So if you want to fork it, same, you have a fork option. You can click on fork. Okay. So anyway, just note down the standard commands because you have to know bit, not in depth. You should know this basic commands. So just note down up to these commands. Okay, the four, and you have to run kubeadm init to set up the cluster. Right. So just note down. I will give some 5 minutes. After that, I will show one practical. Okay, how to create a pod. Right. Those things. Just note down, and the architecture of Kubernetes also. Just note down it. So use the repository and yeah. So let me continue. Yeah. So right now, if you observe kubectl get nodes, both are not ready state. So you have to make it ready. For ready, making ready, there is a networking command you have to run. You have to update some wavier network, right? Wave dimension network, because all the parts are, right, all the parts are not expected run because the DNS resolving issue, the pod network is not there. To install a pod network, you can run this command, then your servers will become to uh, ready state. If you run this, it is created, network is created. If you see cubes, it will get nodes, right? You can see that after few seconds or after few minutes, the servers will get into running steady state, right? You can see both are ready. You can utilize both the servers. So if you want to, right, if you want to utilize this, right, if you want to use the master and agent, right, how both are linked, you integrated, but how both are linked. So there are some components in master and worker node. Okay, so Kubernetes master and worker having some components. Kubernetes architecture diagram, you can see that. So this is a Kubernetes architecture diagram, right? So here if you observe, so this is right, we can formally known as K8S because the letters between K and S is 8 letters, as I said. So here if you see, this is the developer, and developer or DevOps engineer who will connect to the master. So master having these components like API server, controller, scheduler, right? And etcd is a database, will have all the pod information. And this is the worker node having kubelet, docker installed, kube proxy, the networking component is installed, and your pods are running. This is worker node, this is your master node, this is your second worker node. So the users will hit this Kubernetes proxy, where this proxy having links to the pods, different pods. So This is the architecture. The master components are these: API server, etcd, controller, scheduler, and the pod components are, right, and the pod components, I mean the agent components, right? The master components are API server, right? And customer, the users, the developers, the DevOps engineers will uh, access the API server. Okay, from the API server, it will link to the kubelet of the pod. Okay, API server will link to the kubelet of the worker node. Okay, so API server, the main component, etcd is a database, and controller and scheduler, right? And the agent or worker node, right? So having, right, we'll call it as agent, or we'll call it as worker node. So this is having the components like kubelet and docker, right? Kubeproxy. These are the main items of, right, the worker. Okay, you can just note it down. Okay, I will continue. I hope you are writing right. Note it down. Right. So this is the right API server. We will hit using kubectl is a command line. Right. So as I said, API server is a front end of the pod. If you see, it's a front end. The developers or DevOps engineer will hit the API server. So API server is a front end, right? It is the only component, right, which will interact directly, right? So, and you have etcd, it's a key value data store. We'll have the database, and we have a controller, right? So the controller will control the desired state of a node. Your node status will be controlled. Your node status will be controlled by this controller. Okay, if your node is down, your master will observe by using this controller only. Okay, so sorry, we copy, we paste. Right, these are the components of master, and these are the components of worker node. Right. Yeah. So, and the next component is scheduler. It's the scheduler will schedule the deploy the pods. As I said, the up, right, it will download the container latest image and deploy. Which one deploys that? The scheduler will deploys that. Okay, scheduler will schedule, right, to do that. So this is the actual diagram. Master will work with the, and we have container runtime also, right, within the docker will create a containers within that. And this is related to worker node kubelet, which is runs on every node in a cluster, which will interact with the API server, and which will execute the task, and which will reports back to the master. Okay, this API server will have a link to the kubelet, and if any issues are happening or if anything is happening, this will interact back to the master to the API server. Kubelet is a main component in the worker node. Container runtime, it can be Docker or any third party tool like Containerd or anything. This is kubeproxy, which runs on each node, right, to implement the local IP table rules and handling the traffic and handling the load balancing. Okay, and we have pod. As I said, it's a smallest element in, and we can say pod is nothing but collection of containers. Okay, so pod may have container, right? So we'll see remaining components. Okay, later, which are not required now today. So, and this is our page, right? Just try to establish, try to create it, right? Your master node and the entire cluster. And if you want to create a pod, you can run this command kubectl run. I want to run how you have docker run command, same kubectl run nginx pod I want to create using nginx image, the port number 80. Okay, and if I want to run, I can paste the command. You have to run this only master level. Don't run anything at agent side. Okay, if you see, if you want to check whether pod is created or not, kubectl get pod. Kubectl get pod is a command to see that what are the pods are run. Yes, nginx pod is created and updated. But how we are using docker port, right? Hyphen p port number. Same, if you want to access it from outside, you need to expose the port at outside at node level. Node means these two, I would say these two only, these two are nodes, because master also itself one of the node, right? So if you want to establish outside network, you should expose that port. How you are using docker hyphen p, same here, kubectl expose. Kubectl expose for this nginx demo pod, I'm creating and exposing at 80 port, and I'm try to creating a node port level outside. So if you want to see which port it is running, kubectl x, right, get svc. So this is your, right, this is your port number 30162. Your nginx demo is exposed 30162. So this is the ip address, right? Master ip or agent ip, you can both take, you can take both, anything 30162. You expose the port number outside. So if you want to access it, let me in. Let me reshare the screen and let me open with 30162, right? You can see nginx, you can observe that. And what about the agent ip? Take the agent ip and use 30162, right? You can see both, right? This is how it will work. If you want to delete the pod, if you want to delete the service, you have to run some commands to do that. Okay, if you want to delete a pod, right, kubectl get pods, right? If you want to delete it, kubectl, right, delete pod. Which pod? Nginx demo pod, right? You should mention pod slash nginx demo, right? So there is no specific resource. Kubectl delete, right, is getting deleted. If you want to delete the service also, you can see kubectl svc get svc. If you want to delete this service also, you can use kubectl delete s, right, uh, svc slash service slash, and next the service also deleted, right? You will use these commands to delete a service and to delete a pod. So let me upload here as well. Let me remove this, right? So this is how you will delete, you will set up that. That's it. Okay, so try this today. What we will do tomorrow, we will create these pods, networks, right, services, right, using some files. We call these files are Kubernetes manifest files. Okay, how to set up that, we'll see that tomorrow. So yeah, I will recreate the same setup again tomorrow. It will take less than 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just removing this because it is, these are 4 GB RAM servers which are not free. That's why, right, I am removing this. So right, so try to set up this entire Kubernetes master and agent. Okay. So do you have any questions? Just raise your hand. Then yeah, I will share the recording today itself. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So that before tomorrow we can go through it. Thank you.
Yeah. So please do practice by tomorrow itself.
Yes.
So
We, we, absolutely we will. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.